You collected $1,000.
Well, I had about 5,000 of the 8,000 I needed.
Okay, so you still had $3,000 out that you hadn't collected, and you're thinking,
So basically, you
man,
had an A main still to collect.
Oh, the whole thing. You know, I had quite a few $500 sponsors. I had quite a few $300 sponsors. Then I had probably 15 laps still to cover.
right? So because the $50 per lap, and
Right.
So he pulls it off. Everybody shows up that was supposed to be there, and everybody fulfilled their commitment to the race. Correct.
Every single person.
There
wasn't one person that. I mean, people. They owed me $50 for a lap, and they kicked me down like 60. They're like, "Oh, don't even worry about the change. You know, this is."
Don't worry about the $10. Let it go to somebody.
Let it go.
Fuel
You know, it's
yeah.
going to go.
Now that's kind
whatever.
of a precursor to the rest of the night, but I mean,
That
every
was-
single person that committed to make, whether it was a $50 donation or $100 or $500, every person fulfilled that.
Oh yeah,
That is awesome because I honestly, that's a hard thing to pull off, Chris.
Yeah, it was. I was sweating it a little bit, but I still had faith in the racers because I know how we all pull together, and I mean, whoa. But
yeah, I mean, definitely pulled together and then some. It was as a race fan first, and I'm not talking about from the announcer's booth. I'm talking about as a race fan watching that feature for the Iron Giant. I don't know if you're going to find any better racing anywhere.
You know,
that particular race was
it's phenomenal.
Incredible.
For one.
Incredible.
Even to lead up into that, the time trials, heat races, trophy dashes. I mean,
three B mains.
Well, and see, this is the thing.
Three B mains.
Listen to this. This is the thing, and this is kind of why we were up in the tower trying to figure out why we just had somebody try to call in to the Moxie line from Eugene. If you get a chance, we'd like that call back in. Sorry, we didn't get that. But this is the deal: is that we were supposed to go with two B mains, right? And with two B mains, that would transfer 6 out of both those B mains into the A main.
The problem was
that come to find
cars
out,
kept showing up
just out of everywhere. So this is the deal: is that with 3 B mains, it only took the top 4.
Right.
Guess who raced into the top 6 and didn't make it?
That was me.
That was you. And that was the thing. We were sitting there up in the tower trying to figure out, like, what the heck, why and where. I'm not sure.
Oh my God! Go ahead.
But if we were gonna,
if
we were gonna do
nuts.
2 B mains that night, we'd have had 24 cars in each B main.
And that would have been nuts.
So we're like, wait a minute, we gotta split this up. That's why we did the 3 B mains. I think we had 15 cars in each B main.
And that's great. That's great. That's almost like a main itself. I mean, we only start that up at Sunset because it's so small. But so we're up in the Moxie Tower trying to figure out where the hell you are. We're like, okay, we're looking. We're like, well, we know you transferred. Come to find out later.
We hadn't got that information from race directors, whoever was in charge of that they weren't still taking 6, that it was going down to 4.
Down to
okay,
4.
Now we had talked about that off the air, but because we hadn't received it and couldn't get information on it, we were still telling the crowd, okay, top 6 are going. In our mind as announcers, we're watching and we're talking. You raced your way into the last minute.
Yeah, you did. Literally the last lap.
Theoretically, because in our minds, we were still racing into the top 6.
Yeah.
Okay, and in the last couple laps, you got there. Okay, so when the A main rolls out, we're looking at each other going, look at the cars that aren't in this show. The 25 isn't there. The 24 isn't there. You guys brought 4 cars.
Yeah, we brought 4. One blew up early in the night. He got the hard luck award.
That was Scott Boss.
Scott Boss,
yeah. He had a horrible day. So.
Yeah, he's had a horrible race season.
Yeah,
man. He's just had bad luck all the way through the season.
So, but there was, and it wasn't just you guys. There was some really fast cars with quality drivers that didn't make that show.
That just shows you who showed up that day.
Absolutely.
And there was people. Where was the furthest person out? Do you remember?
Oh, traveling wise?
Yeah, traveling wise.
I know that we had a lot of people from Olympia and up there from Grays Harbor.
Right.
I mean, they traveled 6-7 hours.
We had
to get
a few
down
of
here.
those, and
that's awesome.
Yeah,
now we were expecting people from Montana and Idaho that just didn't happen to show up.
Yeah.
But a lot of people from down south showed up. A lot of we were talking about, because the whole thing was this: if you ran a street stock, and they're talking about, well, they run G60s at Sunset,
right.
They run Hoosiers somewhere else, they run Goodyear somewhere else, they run the slicks, whatever compound this place or whatever. would it be feasible for us to even come up, or do we have to change over to these rules? Chris said, and this is when Joel and stuff was here. They realistically, he says no. He says if you are 100% to your rule package, that is what you're going to run here. Everybody runs their own rule package. Nobody's going to have, an upper. Nobody's going to be, more competitive than the next person or whatever.
With an option of slick versus G60.
Right.
That's the normal Lebanon rules, though, is you can run G60s or slicks there.
Right. Right. And we talked about that because some people are like, well, hey, we don't, like Sunset, we don't run slicks. Can we still run this? Can we run, because they don't run down there. And so the thing that I noticed is that the G60s really were not the key to that main event.
Yeah.
It was the whole fact of running a slick. Because G60s, we all know, if you get them hot and you have a caution,
they
seal
up
down
under
and
caution.
they seal up. Those slicks and stuff that they're running, not even. You would sit there and watch them go into turn 1 and 2 because that was the easiest for us.
Right.
And you would see where the glaze was, where the traction was.
Well, and earlier in the day with the sun, the way it hits turn 1, as you guys as drivers drive the car into turn 1, you watch that left rear tire, and we'll do it as announcers. We'll watch that left rear tire to see whose tires are glazing, whose tires aren't, who's working. You can see whose tires are working and whose aren't based upon the color of them and how it changes as it goes across. I think definitely on that particular day, given what track conditions were and the weather, I mean, slicks were the way to go. You got a bigger footprint, able to use a little more power, and there was some cars there that had some power. I mean, I was personally talked to street stocks that had 421 cubic inches.
It's crazy, absolutely crazy.
I mean, that's a late model motor almost.
It is.
There's a lot of them that run a lot of power.
Oh man!
And to get it to be put on the ground, especially if you were there at Willamette and you watched this main event, the track was slick. It just slicked over and slicked over and slicked over, and it just got even crazier. And so we're thinking towards the main event. You start watching some of the late models, some of the modifieds push the cushion all the way to the top and everything else. It's kind of like, okay, where are these street stocks going? Because they were the last race to run. It didn't matter. It didn't matter where they ran. They ran. I mean, we'll put it like this: Cadillac, okay, all the way to the wall.
High side.
I mean, it
Rob
was
Maya style.
Rob Maya was just fast. You get some guys that run the bottom, some guys that run the middle. They had, Chris Novdinger had just a beautiful track for that night.
Novziger, I'll tell you, for that particular night, he produced one of, if not the best, racing surfaces we've seen all year. And I think as a driver, I mean, what'd you think about the surface?
He said in the beginning of the night that he was going to make a smooth. He said it was going to be slick, but by the end of the night, after rubber gets down, it's going to be a nice, fast track. And boy, was he correct. The further the night went along, the faster that track got.
And indeed. And the thing about it wasn't just fast on the bottom. It was fast in the middle, and it was fast on top. I mean, he has become an artist with a grader on that racetrack. Chris puts together a hell of a surface.
For the longest time, we had Claire Arnold, and then, of course,
It went to Bill.
And Bill was, named the Legend of Dirt. It wasn't nothing that he could do. That
Bill will give you a slick, smooth racetrack. I mean, I don't know if anybody could ever produce a track as smooth as Bill ever did.
Well, he would sit there and he'd tell you, okay, well, this is what the track's going to be tonight.
Mm-hmm.
This is what the weather's going to be like. There's a little bit of moisture in the air. This is what the track's going to be. And literally on the ball,
And Chris
he
will do
was
the same
100%.
thing.
And Chris, he's definitely learned a lot from, Bill Arnold. He's learned a lot from just being
We
out
got
there.
that from Claire. I mean,
Yeah.
it was awesome. Chris, your expectations of the Iron Giant and the product that was produced. Let's get your thoughts and feelings, because this was 9 months in the making for this race, right?
It was about 2 months in the making.
2 months, but it was something you talked about, the idea, but we really started hitting hard when you made the announcement to the final checkered flag. You're right, it was about 60 days.
Yeah.
And everybody's still kind of scratching their head going, how did he pull that off?
I'm glad it's over. There was a lot of sleepless nights. I work 40 hours a week. I work a regular job, 6 to 2:30 every day. And every single one of my breaks, every lunch break, I was either in my notebook looking over notes or calling people or just getting the word out, talking to people. And I'd say about 95% of the people I contacted, they wanted to help. They were like, they wanted to do this.
When I think that goes back to seeing what you did with the wall banger.
That's exactly it.
You know, and they said, wow, if he can do that, let's see what he can do if he make it bigger.
Yeah.
And mission accomplished, sir.
Now, were all these people that you contacted, were these all race-related people, or were these like
Yeah.
off the chart people?
A couple people from Facebook that really didn't have a lot to do with racing actually contacted me, but I'd say 95% of the people were through racing. You'd be surprised, you know, some late model drivers, some modified drivers, and then a lot of street stock drivers. I had a lot of people from Banks that helped out. It was pretty amazing. About 3 weeks before the race, it was only planned to be 1,000 to win.
Right.
I didn't have the money. You know, I was going to make it 1,000 to win.
Which for street stock, still a great purse.
Yeah,
That's a huge purse because, I mean, you talk about it, that's most late models and stuff. That's most late model A main event is 1,000 to win.
Right.
Yeah, and everyone would have been super stoked to do that. You know, it'd have been awesome.
Absolutely.
super great. But then Colin Weinbarger, he called me. He's like, I want to buy 2 laps. And I don't know what he did or I don't know what happened that day, but it caught on fire that day. I ended up selling like 20 laps that day. I had Lauren Kersey call me that night, and he said, I want to be the primary sponsor. I want to do $750 for that race. He's all, I want my name on the board. I want it, I want it, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, well, all right, here we go. I made it 2,000 to win.
Right.
And I still had like 20-something laps to sell, and it just, the next day, it was the same thing. It's just everyone's like, all right, this is getting closer. Let's start doing this. And shoot, the laps sold. I think when we did our broadcast 2 weeks ago, that's when I sold my last lap. And then since then, I've still gotten $300 sponsors, $400, $500. And then during the day of, it was.
Speaking.
I can't even imagine.
Let's
even talk about that.
Let's get to that. But the race itself, I definitely know that. I think we all probably expected 40 cars.
That was my expectation.
I think that was a realistic number. I think all of us were probably thinking it was going to be about 40 cars.
Yeah.
And 57 signed in and wanted a shot at that big $3,000.
And that was the thing too. We were sitting there, we were looking, and I came down and I camped, and Corey was up in the tower, before I was, and I was getting everything set up. I got down there probably about 2:30, 3 o'clock, and Corey's like, "Where you at, dude? Hey, they're already qualifying." Blah. I said, "I'm trying to get stuff set up, trying to get Trisha and Aiden and stuff set up or whatever." And as I was walking from the campground into the main grandstands, there's people pitted on the outside of turn number 1. We had like 6 or 7, 8 cars or whatever that were pitted on the outside of turn number 1.
And the crazy thing is, it wasn't just the street stocks that were huge that day. We had over 130 cars there.
130 cars, that's true.
It was over 130 cars. 57 of them were street stocks. So you're talking an immense car count at Willamette Speedway. The pits are huge, but they can't handle that much. I mean, I would have loved.
As big as those pits are, to do the pit cruise.
Oh, it was crazy.
It was insane.
And look at everything. It was kind of like you got to be thinking to yourself, what's going on here? This is crazy because you're right. There was cars pitted outside turns 1 and 2. There was cars pitted in the campground.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Too.
It
really was
insane. My truck where I normally park there with all the extreme people, I was blocked in. I couldn't leave until 11 o'clock at night. But luckily, I was camping out, so I was good to go.
Right.
It was insane. But it was one of the best shows I think we've seen at Willamette this year.
Oh, it was fantastic. And the format. Chris, I know you worked hard on this format, and we talked about it. There was some guys saying, oh, no, we should do this. And everybody had to give their feedback to Chris.
Well, of course.
After Chris had determined this is what we're going to do. Everybody's got their own ideas how to make it better. And Chris and I talked, and I said, you know what? I said, that should be a great format for how many cars we have here for to get your way in. They're going to lock in X amount.
Right.
Then you got to race your way in through the B's and the heats. I thought, you know what? If you want a shot at that money,
you got to earn it.
Absolutely. You're not going to get handed that.
Yeah, not for one race. Don't sit there and be slow and then have a transfer spot and stuff. And we were sitting there, we were talking.
I'll tell you right now, this is the funny thing. No offense to Chris, but I think Chris is probably the only person that's probably going, why did I do that?
That's where I was going with this because this is what I was going with. I was going with him, and I was talking to you, and you sat there, and I'm like, you brought 4 cars up for your own race, and not one made it.
Yeah, that
was the killer. The second part about it is that like Corey was saying, we're up there talking about, hey, there should be some sort of like, not say a freebie, but at least a kind of like where they do the NASCAR or whatever, where they do the celebrity or not the celebrity race. I'm totally missing.
I know what you're saying because here's what happened.
All-Star race. So you vote in a driver. I would.
Well, we didn't even have to do that because there